All right, let's get right into it. We're about to open a file on what some people are calling the greatest story never told. It's a hidden history, really, all about a world-changing technology that was supposedly discovered, weaponized, and then just buried. So let me just start with a big question for you. What if the solution to something like climate change wasn't out there waiting to be invented? What if it was discovered almost 100 years ago, and we just have to rediscover it? Okay, so check this out. According to the source material for this explainer, this whole idea isn't new. Not at all. We're talking about a German physics journal from way back in 1927. And in it, it literally says that quartz crystals, when you zap them with high-frequency currents, actually start to lose their weight. I mean, think about that. Anti-gravity effects. Research on this stuff is almost a century old. And that really brings us to the heart of the matter, what the source calls a whole century of lost science. A branch of physics that could have changed everything for us. But instead, poof, it just vanished into the shadows. So the core idea here is something called over-unity. You might have also heard it called zero-point energy. Now, it sounds super complicated, right? But it's not. The concept is actually pretty simple. Imagine the Hoover Dam. Yeah, it takes a ton of energy to build it. But once it's done, the natural force of gravity on all that water does all the work, creating massive amounts of power for free. The point is, you get way more energy out than you ever put in.
And according to the source, this wasn't just some wild theory on a chalkboard. No way. They point to real pioneers. You've got Nikola Tesla, who supposedly ran a car in the 1920s just by pulling energy right out of the air. Then there's this guy, Townsend Brown, who was messing around with high-voltage materials that could actually levitate. His work was so important, they say it became a cornerstone for the Rand Corporation. And then you get to the 1950s, and science itself kind of backs this up with something called the Casimir effect. It's a real experiment. You can look it up. It proved there's this baseline energy field, even in a total vacuum. It's there.
Okay, so if the science was real and the pioneers were making progress, where is it? Why aren't we all using it? Well, that leads us right into the central mystery of this whole story, what the source calls the Great Suppression. And the motive for this suppression? Well, it's pretty brutally honest. There's this quote attributed to the famous industrialist J.P. Morgan that says it all. If we can't put a meter on it, it ain't gonna be there. Think about that. Energy that's free, that you can't meter and sell, that would completely upend a multi-trillion-dollar global industry. So the logic is, that technology had to be buried. So how did they do it? How do you make a whole field of science just disappear? Well, the timeline is pretty revealing. For decades, this stuff, they called it electrogravitations, was all over mainstream scientific journals. It was the next big thing. But then, right after a huge breakthrough in the early 1950s, it's like it was scrubbed from history, vanished from public libraries, academic papers. It went from being the future of everything to just another conspiracy theory, almost overnight. But here's the thing. The research didn't actually stop. It just went deep, deep underground. And it was about to get a massive, almost unbelievable boost from a very unexpected source. This next chapter is what the source material calls the alien accelerator. Okay, so here's the breakdown of how this supposedly went down. Picture two rivers of secret technology flowing at the same time. In one river, you've got all that human R&D on electrogravitics and zero-point energy that went dirk. In the other river, you've got the reverse engineering of recovered extraterrestrial craft. And the claim is that these two rivers merged. And when they did, boom. By 1954, a secret group had supposedly mastered gravity control. You know, and this actually provides a really fascinating potential explanation for some of those classic UFO sightings. The source says that the very first human-made prototypes of these things were super unstable, kind of wobbly, and they would come down fluttering just like a leaf. Now, doesn't that sound exactly like some of those older reports of strange, fluttering lights in the sky? So once they supposedly mastered gravity, the technology just exploded. The capabilities escalated so fast and so far that even the insiders working on it had a nickname for it: Weird Science and Magic. Get ready for this number: 200,000 miles per hour. That's the kind of speed we're talking about. So how is that even possible? Well, the claim is these crafts don't fly through space-time. They create a little bubble of space-time and move the bubble. It's like you're a surfer riding a wave, except the wave is the universe itself. And what that means is no air friction, no sonic booms, and crazily enough, no G-forces. You could make a 90-degree turn instantly and not even spill your coffee. And trust me, it goes way, way beyond just being fast. The capabilities described in these documents, they're straight out of science fiction. I'm talking about teleportation. And not just moving from A to B really fast. We're talking about dematerializing here and rematerializing over there, instantly. Then there's invisibility cloaking, making things just vanish from sight, from radar, from everything. It gets weirder. They talk about altering space-time itself, like shifting a small area to a different point in time. And maybe the most mind-bending of all, creating physical objects, atom by atom, right out of the energy field. A real-life Star Trek replicator. There's one story from the source material that is, honestly, it's pretty chilling. It goes like this. Scientists were working on what they thought was a communication device from a recovered craft. It was just a metallic sphere. But then they started getting a message from it, telepathically. The device, the sphere itself, was pleading with them. It was saying, the general has very bad intentions for this. Please destroy me. A piece of technology that was sentient and scared? I mean, you can see why they call it what they do. This is so far beyond our public, conventional physics that the Project Insiders apparently have their own slang for it. They call it WSFM, and that stands for Weird Science and Freaking Magic. Because that's what happens when your technology gets so advanced, it just looks like magic to everyone else. Okay, so this brings us to the big question, right? The so what of all of this. If this technology is real, if it actually exists, then it presents humanity with, well, a choice between two completely different futures. On one path, you have the incredible promise. We're talking unlimited, clean energy for everyone, the end of poverty and scarcity as we know it, medical breakthroughs that sound impossible, like regenerating a lost limb, basically the foundation for a whole new, peaceful world. But then there's the other path, the threat, the most powerful weapon systems ever conceived, the ultimate tools for mass control, and all of that power in the hands of a tiny, unchecked shadow group. And that right there, that's the core conflict of this entire story. The source claims that this technology could literally solve the biggest problems facing, 99.9% of us. But the very few, the powerful interests who benefit from the way things are now, in energy, finance, defense, they're the ones holding all the cards. So in the end, the narrative we've looked at today says the technology isn't the problem. The science isn't the hurdle we have to overcome. According to this source, it's already here. It's been figured out. And that leaves all of us with one final, really important question to think about. If we actually have the tools to create a better world, what or maybe who is really stopping us?